Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to tackle something we all struggle with, procrastination. We're breaking down five scientifically backed techniques to finally beat it. We're talking about turning that awful feeling of frustration into pure, unstoppable focus.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. Boredom or pain? What kind of question is that? But stick with me here. We're going to kick things off with this really fascinating experiment from back in 2014. And trust me, it reveals something deep, something almost primal about how our minds work and why we just have to be doing something.
And the results were, well, they were literally shocking. So get this. They put people in an empty room with absolutely nothing to do, except for a button that gave them a mild electric shock. And you won't believe it. A staggering 97% of the men and a full quarter of the women chose to press the button. I mean, they literally picked a jolt of electricity over just sitting there with their thoughts. So what on earth does that tell us? It's a huge clue, right? Our brains are just fundamentally wired for action. It seems like we'd rather have any kind of stimulation, even if it's painful, than just nothing.
Okay, so that leads to a pretty big question, right? If we hate being bored that much, why in the world do we procrastinate on stuff that actually matters? It's a total paradox. Well, here's the problem. Our brains are basically dopamine junkies. They're always chasing the easy, high dopamine hits, scrolling social media, watching videos, and that makes those important, low dopamine tasks feel incredibly, painfully boring. So what's the solution? We need a deliberate dopamine reset.
And here is the surprisingly simple way to do it. This little 15-minute exercise, it basically recalibrates your brain's whole reward system. Think about it like this. If you eat really bland food for a while, even a simple piece of fruit tastes incredible, right? It's the same idea. By forcing yourself to sit in total boredom, you lower your stimulation threshold. And all of a sudden, that report you've been putting off, it actually starts to look kind of interesting in comparison. But yeah, there's a catch, isn't there? You might end up procrastinating on the boredom exercise itself. All right, so how do we solve that problem? The problem of not even starting the thing that's supposed to help us start. Well, for that, let's look at this really clever study. They took two groups of people and told them to work out for a week. Now, both groups had the exact same goal, but one of them was given one simple, super specific instruction. And check this out. The group that used this one little planning trick, they were a massive 67% more successful at actually sticking to their workout plan. 67%. And the craziest part is how ridiculously simple this technique was. But man, was it effective.
This was literally it. All they had to do was write down their exact intention. Something like, I will go for a 30-minute run in the park at 7 a.m. See? By being that specific, you just eliminate all the guesswork, all the friction. You're basically giving your brain a direct command with no wiggle room. So here's the takeaway. Don't just say, I'm going to work on that report. No. Define exactly when, where, and for how long.
Okay, but what happens when you've done that? You've been super specific, you know exactly what you need to do, but the task still feels like climbing Mount Everest. It's just too big, too overwhelming to even think about starting. Well, this is where a brilliant concept from Japan comes in to shrink that mountain down to a tiny, manageable molehill. The idea is called Kaizen, and it's all about continuous improvement through tiny, incremental changes. So instead of trying to force a huge new habit like, I'm going to study for 5 hours straight, Kaizen says, just start with 1 minute. That's it. Our brains are built to resist big, scary changes. But come on, who can argue with 1 single minute? It's almost impossible to fail. And the path forward from there is all about that slow, gradual growth. You start with just 1 minute a day for a whole week. The next week, maybe you bump it up to 5 minutes, then 10, then 20. You see how it works? This super small, consistent start builds an absolutely unbreakable habit over time. And the best part is it never feels overwhelming. Okay, so you've done it. You've used Kaizen, you've built the habit, and now you're actually working for longer stretches. Awesome. But a new problem pops up. You know the feeling. After about 30 or 40 minutes, your focus starts to wander, and you can just feel your mental energy draining away. Hey, it's not you. It's not a personal failing. It's just how our brains are wired. The answer isn't to just power through it and burn yourself out. Nope. The smart move is to work with your brain's natural rhythm. And we do that by working in these short, focused sprints. You've probably heard of it. It's called the Pomodoro technique. The method couldn't be simpler. You work with intense, laser-like focus for 25 minutes. Then you take a mandatory 5-minute break. And that cycle of sprint and rest is what lets your brain recharge, letting you maintain that high performance for hours. But, and this is a big but, the kind of break you take is absolutely critical. Listen, taking a break to scroll through your phone, that's not a break. Not even close. You're just shifting your focus to another high dopamine energy-sucking task. A real, productive break needs to be unplugged. Get up from your desk, go for a quick walk, do some stretches, grab a glass of water, let your mind actually truly rest. So you're doing it all. You're doing the sprints, you're taking real breaks, but then you hit it, the wall. That familiar, gut-wrenching feeling of frustration, and that voice in your head screaming at you to just give up. How do you push through that final, toughest barrier? Well, there's a powerful little mantra you can use in that exact moment. Think of it like a psychological switch you can flip to completely reframe the experience. It can give you an instant dopamine hit and that feeling of progress you so desperately need. This is it. It's so simple, just close your eyes for a second, take a breath, and say this to yourself, I am on the right path. What this does is it completely reframes that feeling of struggle. Suddenly, it's not a sign that you're failing. It's proof. It's evidence that you're doing the hard work that gets you to your goal. And that shift in perspective, it's incredibly powerful. And here's how to use it. Use it to bookend your work sessions. Say it right before you start to get your mind right. And say it at the end of every 25-minute session to really lock in that feeling of accomplishment. Because that feeling of making progress, that's the ultimate fuel that's going to keep you going day in and day out. So let's just pull this all together. What we've built here is a complete interconnected system. You start by resetting your brain with boredom. Then you get super specific with your plan. You start ridiculously small using Kaizen. You keep your focus sharp with the Pomodoro technique, and you stay motivated with that right path mantra. You see, each solution neatly solves the problem that came before it, giving you this amazing toolkit to fight procrastination at every single stage. And that's our explainer on how to finally conquer procrastination. Just remember, the journey to focus and productivity, it never starts with some giant, overwhelming leap. It always starts with one single, small, intentional step. So the real question now is, what's the 1-minute step you're going to take today to get on the right path?